Okay, welcome back to the channel. Hobby1 Kenobi here. We're continuing work on the Takom T-54B. As I've mentioned in earlier videos, the idea here is to create an abandoned Iraqi vehicle. As you can see here, the vehicle's got the base coat on, which really is a combination of three Tamiya paints: XF55, XF19, and X2. We've got a flat coat now on the vehicle, and I'm going to go ahead and start to add oils, as you can see I'm doing here. So for the oils, I like to use Winsor & Newton Winton oil colors, and these are wonderful artist oil paints. So for this vehicle, I'm going to use a combination of black, white, yellow, and burnt umber. And I feel like these four colors, I can get a good combination of different shades of this base color, as well as create some dramatic effects for the weathering here. All the brushes that you see in this video are actually dedicated to this sort of weathering process. I'm going to apply with a thin brush here, and I'm just going to apply some of this lighter base color and use another brush to just sort of wipe it away. I could wipe it away without any sort of terpenoid or anything on it. The oils themselves will still be pretty malleable even hours after applying them to the model. However, if you find that the paint is not moving in a way that you like, you can certainly add a little bit of terpenoid, but I would remove most of the excess off of a paper towel. So as you can see here, I'm just finding areas on the vehicle where the crew might scuff and move around and set up equipment, maybe drop things. That's kind of what I'm trying to take care in where I position scuffs or other type of weathering. At this part of the video, I'm going to now focus on the front hull. And what I need to do is bring up the colors and the shades that are from the bottom of the vehicle up to the front of the vehicle. So as you can see here, I'm adding some colors that are close to the base color. Maybe they're a little bit yellowish, maybe they're a little bit lighter, maybe they're a little bit darker. And I'm just trying to create some sort of variation. It is a good idea, I find, to actually mix the colors as best you can to create the actual base color. You're going to find that this will be useful down the road, and I'll create just a little pile of that color just ready to go at any time. Sometimes I'll use it to cover up mistakes. Sometimes I'll use it in sort of delicate shading effects. Maybe I'll do a really dark color, like a sort of a patch underneath. And then I will flick some of the diluted base color on top of that, which mutes it quite a bit and actually creates a very interesting and realistic effect. This is an opportunity for a modeler to become very artistic. When we're dealing with the construction, there's a lot of details, maybe super detailing things that we're trying to make the vehicle look more and more realistic. But when it comes to the weathering, you have a lot of freedom. Of course, you still want to follow references. You still want to look at other vehicles. You don't have to find just photos of this particular vehicle, but if you find other vehicles that are in the same type of environment, you get a really good idea as to how they weather. However, take in consideration that certain tanks will have different types of paint, and some paint can withstand more abuse than others. So now I'm just dabbing on some of the white, and I'll use maybe 4 different types of brushes. Some little ones just to apply the paint to the model, and then another set of brushes to move the material around. I will use a fairly soft, large brush to help blend if I want to blend effects. You'll also notice that I've applied some black dots and muted them quite a bit, but they create the effect again as if there's these subtle little scratches. And I'm trying to make things look somewhat random. I don't want to have it symmetrical. I don't want a reddish tint on one side and a reddish tint on the other side. Certainly don't necessarily want them in the same places. There are some weathering effects that will be symmetrical. Maybe splashes of mud come up a certain way because of the tracks, and then they would of course do the same on the other side. But this is a vehicle where we're dealing with sand, and aside from the occasional tracks kicking up this sand, a lot of the effects are actually going to be asymmetrical and appear more random. On the other end of the spectrum, you also don't want to have so much variety that the effects become too busy or that they're not cohesive. You do want cohesion. So I would say when I start a model, I kind of think about 5 or 6 different things I'm going to do, and then kind of stick with those largely. Streaking effects are very effective as well. So here's another brush. This one has no paint on it, so it's just there to sort of help blend a little bit. You'll find that as you apply paints, you can apply a hard edge, or you can soften it up a bit by blending, and again, that creates just more variety in the effects. So what I've done here is I've taken a toothpick and I've taken a thin brush loaded up with heavily thinned paint, and I flick it against the toothpick to help create a splatter effect. And this effect is incredibly useful. I would say that this effect accounts for probably 70 to 80% of the effects that I do on a vehicle. What's really nice about it is, yes, it creates a splatter effect. So you're simulating mud or dirt or oil stains or anything like that. But if you come at it with a blending brush, you can move the little circles into smudges. And now you've created a whole nother layer of effect. And it's especially, dare I say again, dare I use the word effective, it is especially effective to use this technique when you're trying to create contrast. So what I'll do is I'll have a very light color, and then I'll splatter some dark paint. Or I'll have a very dark under color, and then I'll splatter some light paint. And this effect can be very, very dramatic and really, really, again, very realistic. And this is a great way to just simply apply the paint too. I don't need to actually put brush to the model, but I can flick it on from a distance. I can decide how hard I flick it. I can flick softly. If I flick with a lot of pressure, it's gonna be a lot of paint coming onto the model. If I back off on that pressure and do it lightly, maybe 3 or 4 different little drops will go into that place, which is very, very useful. I'm focusing now around the driver's hatch here. This is going to be an area of the tank that sees a lot of wear. There's a lot of traction, there's a lot of movement. The driver is going to get out of the vehicle from this position and into the vehicle from this position. And as you see here, I'm dealing with quite a few gray tones and some of the lighter base color. And again, taking a look at the colors that I'm working with: black, white, which make grays. I've got yellow, so I can add some yellow to that gray, which now gives me that base color. I have burnt umber. I can do any sort of variation of browns or tan colors with that, with the yellow and the white. I can also have some very dark stains with the black and the burnt umber together. So these four colors give me a number of different possibilities. And I would recommend that if you do like to use oils, or do want to weather with oils, that you don't actually buy the pre-made store-bought paints. I'm referring to, things by model companies like Tamiya. Don't get those. Get the oil paints and just get the following colors: black, white, brown, and blue, yellow, red. And if you have those colors, you can create any possible color you could ever imagine. All you have to do is blend and take some care in that. I just don't see the point in purchasing things like panel line color or buying a product for $6, $7 that's only one color. Why would you limit yourself? For that same price, you can buy a couple of these oil paints. Endless possibilities there. Another nice aspect of oil paints is that they take days to dry completely. So you can come back, you can spend a couple of days on the weathering process and be able to make changes or adjustments to the things that you've already done. You're not stuck necessarily. And again, if you've made any mistakes or you've done a little too much, you can always attack it with the base color again. That you've created out of the oil colors. It's incredibly forgiving using oil colors. Another effect that you can do with oil paints is just some subtle highlighting and dry brushing. And as you can see, I'm trying to move some material around, but I can also bring it up to the top of surfaces. So I can add a lighter color and just brush against those upper surfaces, and these surfaces will pick up the paint really well. It is important at this stage and this style of oil paint rendering to make sure that you do have a flat surface. If I were doing something called dot filtering, which you can see in previous videos of mine, where we essentially put dots of many different types of colors and then streak, that effect is, in my experience, has been more effective with a semi-gloss or gloss finish. But this type of painting we're going to want to do on a flat surface. If it were a gloss surface, the paint would just move around far too much. So now here I'm going to take a look at this fender here and just load up a bunch of the lighter color and start to blend it. My initial idea here was to create a large scuff along this fender. I noticed a couple of my references showed a very, like, the paint just had been completely removed in a large section here, in this sort of pear shape. So I was getting ready to emulate that, but I think here I'm just going to blend it and start to get the look of faded paint. My plan in a future video is to take a look at the AK weathering pencils. I went ahead and purchased the complete set of weathering pencils, and for this area of the tank I'm going to use those pencils to simulate that large chipping. And here we can see the effects on the vehicle. Again, at this stage, I'm going to add or even remove some of the stuff that I've done. I'll continue to come at it after a couple of days, but this is, you can see how effective oil paint rendering is. So with that, we're going to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit subscribe, please hit like, please hit the bell for future notifications. Please share this video with others, and as always, feel free to comment. I love the feedback, and I try to respond to all of the comments that you're giving me as quick as I can. It's wonderful having this a little bit of a community here at the channel. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great one. Bye.